If you're searching for things like legally protect your business contracts, HoneyBook contracts, this probably isn't about curiosity. It's because you're looking for a real solution. Maybe you've had some client pushback on actually having contracts, or something may have occurred inside of your business and you're wanting to know, how do you actually protect your company? Or you might have thought to yourself, oh, I had them sign some kind of contract in HoneyBook, but am I truly protected? Here's the hard truth. Most event business owners in our industry are not thoroughly thinking through, how do they protect their business when it comes to contracts. And once they get in trouble, they find that it's now important to actually do this. So today I'm going to be walking you through 3 contracts every event business needs to have, what each one of them protects you from, and how to set them up correctly inside of HoneyBook. So let's dig into it today. So I hope you take out some pen and paper, because we're going to be digging into the legal mistakes that probably are costing you in your event business. And it's better to learn before you actually need to make sure you have a contract than being in a position that an event has been canceled and you don't have anything to protect your business. Over the years of working with individuals, I have been in positions where I've spoken to people that are like, oh, well, I just have my receipts and that should be enough. I'm like, that's not how contracts work. If there's not clear communication methods going on inside of your client experience or contracts, you're really leaving yourself open up for any kind of issue that could potentially happen. Biggest mistake that people do make when it comes to however they're handling their business is that you have this false sense of security that you're protected. Okay, I had this contract, it's signed. You have something in HoneyBook, or I sent this receipt in HoneyBook, or I communicated in this email, and we're doing all these things very loosely inside of our business instead of making sure that we have true clarity on what we're wanting to protect our business from when it comes to clients, and most importantly, making sure our clients understand what are the boundaries and the rules of working with us. You are a business owner. You have an asset that you're building. Hopefully, if we are taking the time to watch this video, that is a place you're in right now. So if that's the place you're in, you want to make sure that you're actually protecting it. So it's not just enough to have a contract, any contract. I think there was this dummy template contract, or I've seen it all. I've heard it all over the years as a HoneyBook Pro. But today I want to actually share with you what are the 3 contracts, and also share with you how to put this inside of HoneyBook. And by not doing this, the real problem that lies when you don't have the proper contracts is that you find yourself in a very risky situation. You find yourself in a place where you can be losing money, and that could be thousands of dollars. I know we've all heard that one horror story of a friend that had a business and someone did a chargeback and they lost thousands of dollars because they didn't have the proper communication methods or contracts in place to protect themselves. So you don't want to find yourself in a position where you have nothing legally binding you when it comes to chargebacks, or having to give refunds, or most importantly, the infamous scope creep. So you might had not thought through, how do I handle if a client booked me for this, but now they're wanting me to do X, Y, and Z? That's not what they booked me for. You want to make sure you have a contract that is able to help cover any of these potential things. And let me just be clear, is that what you may find as your contract when you first started probably is not going to be the same contract that's going to give you the kind of protection your business needs today. And I even recently had to go back to some of my old contracts, or my contracts, and I was like, I need to make some tweaks. Here's some new things that are not valid anymore, because you don't want it to be that you have incomplete or outdated contracts that just don't align with the type of services. So you may had got some contracts completed earlier in your journey, but now you're in a position that you need to make sure that you have the most accurate ones. So the beauty about contracts is that it will actually protect you. It protects you in a way that you can never imagine. I've heard great things about people that had proper communication inside of their business, when it came to contracts. And it's one of those things that you hope that you never have to use, just like insurance. You hope you never have to use your insurance. Do I like the fact that I'm paying yearly for something that I hope that I never have to use? Yes, because if I ever have to use it, you're grateful that you have it. Same thing with contracts. So the thing about it is that it gives you legal protection to cover three things when people are working with you. It allows for you to have clear agreements between you and that client, clear policies that you should be adhering to. And I know that I've spoken to people on my podcast as well as other clients where they're like, I know this in my policy, but sometimes I let things go. Don't do that, because if you allow your boundaries to be broken, one never gets you to strengthen your no or your redirection, but then it also allows for people to believe that you don't have boundaries, and they will try to push the barriers each time. And then when you do have a clear contract, it allows for you to have clear workflows and expectations for both the client as well as you. So this is why you want to make sure that you have this inside of your business, and making sure that you review it. I would say at least every couple of years, once you do have your contracts, or if something does come up, you're like, you know what, I need to make sure I have this. And this is something that I know that a lot of companies had to learn during the pandemic. And even as now we're in a season and time where tariffs are definitely increasing a lot of our cost. So you should have some kind of clause inside of your contract that actually protects you for those types of increases as well. So the first contract that I want to dig into is going to be your client agreement. So when we talk about your client agreement, this is going to be so important for you to have, because it really is your primary protection layer between you and your customer. It defines what's included and, most importantly, what's not included, so that you're able to ensure that you are putting that first line of barrier between any potential scope creep. It allows for them to know how and when you get paid. So this is where you want to clearly state exactly what are the best ways to for them to pay you. So for those of you that are using a CRM, you want to have that in there. I know for some of the high ticket clients that I work with, they don't have their payments go to CRMs because of the transaction fees. So they do it another way. But you need to be able to make sure that's clearly stated in your contracts. You want to also include what happens if plans change, because that does happen. But if you don't have it in there, what you may have is somebody that pushes back because they want to make this change, and now you're like, oh, it's going to be an extra fee. And they're like, hold on, you don't mention that. Because sometimes people are really quick at mentioning what they say, that like, for those that really read their contracts, they're on top of it. They know their loopholes. So just don't allow yourself to be in a position that you are caught in a loophole situation. And it also allows for you to have clarity on how conflicts are handled, so that you can always refer people to it when there is a situation, so that if it ever does go down the route of you having to find yourself in court, you want to make sure you have something. And the thing is that if it's not written, it is not enforceable, meaning your business is not protected when it comes down to the legal process. The thing about client agreements is that you want to have clarity as to how do you protect yourself from cancellations, late or missing payments, any types of misunderstandings with scope creep. Those are super important. I remember I had to actually start to include a NSF clause inside of my payments, or late payments. And this, I work with corporate clients. I had a corporate client that wrote a check that bounced, and it's a billion-dollar company, and it still bounced. And it was something clerical because they used a bank account that was no longer used. It was a lot behind it, but it wasn't intentional. They corrected it, but I still got charged by my bank for an NSF fee. So you just want to make sure you have it. And the thing is that a strong client agreement is going to have your scope of service, your payment terms, your cancellation and rescheduling policy, your force majeure, limitation of liability, your dispute resolutions. All of those things are necessary. And the thing about it is that the legal reality is that if you do not have this written, it's just not going to leave you protected. And so this does not include these verbal agreements. That's why even when I'm building out workflows for people, if you're doing Zoom calls of individuals or phone calls of people and you're not doing a recap or you're not taking notes, you're opening yourself up for misinterpretation. So I like to make sure that I always have some kind of recap email, so that there's never a situation where someone's like, oh, well, I said this. Like, nope, I sent you this review, blah, 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 recap, and this is what we talked about. You just want to protect yourself. So keep it in mind that it's not just verbal agreements, DMs, or just emails that help protect you in a dispute. In fact, I've seen where people that have poor contracts, but they have email correspondence where when it came down with a dispute, they did not get their money back. So they did an event for someone that actually got away with money from them. I will make sure to have in the description some basic templates to get started, protect your business, that I found on Etsy, and I recommend people to them all the time, even when people work with me for HoneyBook build outs, just so you can have something to start with, and then you want to make modifications to it according to your business and how well you want to protect your company. So if you don't have the money and the means right now to pay a lawyer to create it, start with this template, make the proper updates, and then when the time comes, you can always get a professional to do the next level edits for you. Okay, the second contract is going to be your contractor or vendor agreements. This is the one that protects you from when other people make mistakes. As much as it may be tempting to be like, well, that wasn't me that did it, you're still going to be legally bound. So you want to make sure that you're protecting your business between the people that are working with you, be it team members or partners. So if you pay anyone, this can be your DJs, assistants, creatives, planners, bartenders, tech help. You need this. You want to make sure you have this. You want to make sure that it's thinking through anything that can potentially leave you open for misunderstandings or liability due to someone else's error. Because as much as you want to point the finger at someone else, that will not solve what's going on. On a legal matter. And so this contract is what protects you from being legally responsible for someone else's actions, worker misclassification issues. So if someone gets hurt on a job, are you responsible? Payment disputes, it clearly has that there. Any confusion over who owns photos, contents, or designs, that needs to be clearly stated in those documents. So by doing that, it does help you with being able to ensure that your business is protected. And a proper contract agreement should always clarify contractor versus employee status. If they are not an employee, you need to clearly state that in that contract. It should also have a scope of work and deadlines. This is important as well, depending on what this relationship is. Like I personally have people that sign a initial vendor agreement with me when I'm onboarding them, but for each event, I have a booking agreement for each and every one of them as well, that's specific to that event. So it just comes down to how you want to protect your business. I've had some stuff, not a whole bunch of shady stuff, but some things that made me understand like, everybody don't do business the same way. Everyone's not professional the same way. Everyone doesn't see being dressing professionally the same way, arriving the same way. There's a lot of a lot of interpretations out there. So in order to protect my brand and entity, I knew that I needed to have this. So you want to make sure you have your payment terms clearly stated, confidentiality, what is okay for them to share and what's okay for them not to share, ownership of the final product. So the legal reality about this is that without this agreement, you can be on the hook, even if you didn't actually create the issue. So let's say you are a planner and you book a DJ for this specific event, and this DJ wrecks this location that y'all are at. If you don't have clear contracts and you're the one that actually brought this person in and you're the one that has the agreement with this DJ, you can be responsible. So you want to make sure you have the proper contracts inside of your business. The third contract is going to be all about your terms and conditions. And this is probably one of the most overlooked and the most powerful contract that you can have inside of your agreements with your customers and also your vendors. And this is like your backup shield to ensure that you are protecting your brand. It protects you from those chargebacks. It protects you from refund demands that violate your policies. Clients saying, I didn't know, platform related disputes that might occur like through Square or PayPal, all of those platforms. This usually includes what are your refund and chargeback policies, because if you don't have one of those in a contract and then someone shady and they go onto PayPal PayPal's going to give them their money. So if you don't have that in there, there will be an issue. Communication expectations. So when are the best, if you have Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, if someone's trying to reach out to you at 6, 7 o'clock and they're like, well, I tried to reach out to her, that's why we charged back. When did they call? Oh, they called outside those hours. Oh, and they signed the contract saying that they understood this was your agreement. You're protected. So you want to make sure that the client understands what responsibilities they have as far as this agreement. Any delivery timelines, it depends on the type of business that you have, the governing laws, so what state and what state and country you're in, and what are the laws that pertain to that, and how these policies interact with your main contract. So I've found some people that don't have contracts, but what they'll have is like terms, and it's the most basic terms, and I'm just like, I hope no one ever you just hope that nothing ever happens that it has to like stand up in court, because that client is about to win. So you just want to make sure that you have things in place to protect your brand. So the legal reality of your terms and conditions is that courts often look at whether policies clearly disclose before payment, not buried after. So it has to be clearly stated before someone goes into an agreement with you, not something that you're trying to say, but no, we talked about this after the fact. The law is going to go with your customer. So now here we go into the fun part that you've probably been really waiting for. I'm about to show you, how do you put all of this stuff inside of HoneyBook? How do you actually design your contracts? How do you make sure you're doing proposals with the contracts that are necessary? How do you do it in a way to reduce any potential confusion? So you do want to make sure you're saving this post so that you're keeping on top of all of the new features inside of HoneyBook. And if you're someone that is still using legacy files, I don't know what to tell you, because I do not teach people how to use legacy inside of HoneyBook, because that's a couple years ago. Are you a creative or service-based business owner in a position that you just need more guidance on what to do inside of your business? You know that you want to hit certain goals and scale, but you just are finding yourself a little bit overwhelmed about how to look at what's going on in your business. You're probably in a position that you've got clients, you're booked, and you're busy, but you don't actually understand the data inside of your business. You know that revenue is not the only indicator to knowing if your business is healthy, but you're also unsure as to what else you should be looking at. That's where the CEO Operations Map was created as a free resource for business owners just like you. It helps with you understanding exactly where potential problems may be inside of your company, and how to go about creating the structure needed to make the time to review what's working and not working inside of your business. If you're looking for a little bit more guidance on how to get clarity inside of your business, definitely take the time to download this free resource today. Okay, so inside of HoneyBook, we have all of these great templates in which you're able to build. And so the key to your contracts, or just first tip I'm going to give you, is make sure that inside of your HoneyBook, you only have documents that you actually are going to use. I've gone into some people's accounts where they have 40, 50, 60 templates they were going to create, but they never got a chance to. No shame. We've all been there before. But it's important to do that. If you do not currently have, HoneyBook does have some basic templates. Again, you take that with however you want to. But if you want to see what they have, all I did was go to Template Gallery, and they have some basic designs you can look at to see which one is going to be something you will want. But again, I would highly recommend checking out the templates in which I have in the description. So the way that you actually create you a template inside of HoneyBook, you do create and contract. I have worked with people that do videography, and they have people that work with them to do photography. They also might do some like 360 photo booths or something like that. And so their videography and photography contract might be the same, but their 360 photo booth is, you have two options. You can make sure you have one encompassing contract that's clearly written by a lawyer to ensure that you're protecting both entities, or inside of HoneyBook, you can have a contract that's designated for wedding So it could be called wedding and video contract. And then you can create one for the same thing, but for 360. The biggest thing is that you want to make sure that it's designed according to the design aesthetic inside of HoneyBook with your smart files. One of the things I say to people that make it easier for you to actually use HoneyBook is ensuring that you are not reinventing the wheel for each and every one of your templates. You want to make sure that you have some level of consistency just in case you are not aware of this. So like if I knew that I have a special header that I like to use, all I have to do is pull in layout, click in this box. Let's do this again. Layout. And so if you see on the right-hand side, it says reuse a content block from a template. If I click in this white space and click reuse, I can then go to another one of my templates that starts the way I want it to start, and it pulls it right in. So you're not having to guess, okay, is the logo the same size on each one of my things? Like you can easily pull that data in from one project to the next. And this is true for anything. So like if you have multiple contracts and you're creating a master proposal and you want to switch out contracts, you do the exact same thing. So like let's say if I went here, I click in the contract space, reuse contract from a template, and then I can pull in the template of that contract. Very easy. So I personally, when I'm doing my designs, I like to have a top, a header, and a footer, just because unfortunately this day and age, a lot of people don't read and they'll just go onto the page and not know what in the world to do. So I like to have a closer, and then all I have to then do is please sign above and click complete it to send us your signature. So if you wanted to just keep it simple like this, you can do that. Um, the great thing about HoneyBook is that if you do purchase, let's say that template I discussed, and then you upload it into HoneyBook, it does pull in smart fields. So for those of you that are newer to HoneyBook, HoneyBook has smart fields. Smart fields are intended to help with reducing any potential clerical errors that can occur. The way that you can actually input a smart field is you can go to where you're looking to add that actual smart field, and then you go and on the right-hand side, it says field, you can add. So if I do add, it allows for me to do a smart field, and I can specify where this smart field information or what the field information is. So let's say again, I do engagement photography. If I had an engagement session date, I could put that inside of my contract if I wanted to do so. If I had a specific session time or a session location, I can pull this in. So you want to use smart fields as much as you possibly can so that you are ensuring that you're not mistakenly sending an incomplete or incorrect contract to a client. So I like to use the title of the project name. I love to use the client's first and last, their project type. Like I try to make use of it as much as I possibly can. But let's say you wanted to make sure you had a terms and agreements section that you wanted to ensure people knew that once you do a deposit that you don't get it back or reschedule. So let's say you have one of those specific things that you want people to leave an initial. So instead of it being a smart file, and then I guess backtrack on that, is that you can make it that the smart field is required or read only. So if you did need to do that, you can do read only. So like I have, for me, read only might be the project date if I'm sending it to the client. They cannot override that date. But let's say I have a smart field that is uh client's organization or something like that, and they must put that in. That's how I would do that. Let's see. Um First client organization. So if I needed to have that, it's not read only, but it's a required field. then I would toggle that on. But let's say I need them to input something. Or actually, I just saw that they had that new one for initials. I didn't know that they had that first client initials. So if I wanted to make that this was a required field, they are going to be required to initial in that space. So if you're going to have specific sections that you know that you want your clients to sign, you can have it there and then they would be forced to do it. Okay, so if I wanted to, you can always click preview to see how it looks, what it looks like for the client, and then just save your contracts. As I've talked about before, my workflow videos and training videos, I have a workflow masterclass I recently did. I have mentioned take time to write out your actual client workflow and experience to know when specific information is going to a client. So let's say you are someone that does corporate event planning and you have the client sign a contract for you to then create an invoice that goes to their accounting department because you don't want everything to go at one point. Then you know that I need to have an invoice that's separate from an actual contract because I need that inside of my workflow. That might be what you need. And if that's what you need, then all you have to do is just create an invoice template, follow the same steps I just gave you, so that you're able to ensure that you're sending an invoice and a contract separately. But one of the beautiful things inside of HoneyBook that I enjoy is that it allows for you to get your contract signed and payment at the exact same time. And all I would do is go back to the contract that I had did as a dummy. And then if I needed to do a blank page and I wanted to now do an invoice and pay and start blank, I can decide if it's going to be a standard invoice or a reoccurring invoice based on the type of service I know I'm having people book me for. And then you can do the exact same design. And then you can say, my invoice. I can move this page ahead so I can want them to see the invoice before the contract and then they can get a payment. If you have any special payment terms, like I have with one of the wedding clients I just did a setup because of the value of their events, they don't want to consume $300 plus of transaction fees for each service. They have people pay them through their bank account. So what we did was that below here, we actually did a payment instructions. And then I created a divider, did it at 15 to pay. And then we had instructions underneath it. And then I still did my closer using this, boom. And then I just, again, design it based off of what you need to happen with your client. So if I knew that and the way I always tell people, when you're doing your main templates, think of these as your master templates because you can then go inside of a project and pull those templates. So design your templates so that they don't require you to make a ton of changes, as well as helping to reduce any potential errors that can occur when it comes to you sending your contracts to your clients. So that's why I do recommend for people, like, have your master proposal, and then all you have to do is have your individual contracts so that when it comes to you getting to your contract page, all you have to do, instead of having, 5, 6 different proposals, all you need to do is just have your contracts and then you just keep reuse contract from another template. Then I can select another template contract and boom, it pulls right in. So you have the ability to make it super easy for yourself when you're pulling in your contracts inside of HoneyBook so that you're helping to reduce any potential errors. So use smart fields to help with ensuring that you're reducing any potential errors and issues inside of your flows. Here's the bottom line. Contracts are not optional. They aren't about being aggressive. They aren't intended to create any potential barriers with you having clients or vendors working with you. They're really created to help to remove any ambiguity inside of your business. And it's about protecting your business that you're actively working to scale so that you can hit the goals that you're desiring. Do not go about running your business without thinking through how you're going to protect it. And if your operations aren't clear, your contracts will not hold up to protect your brand if there are chargebacks or any particular issues that can come awry. So I'm curious from you, comment below and let me know, how are you currently getting your contract signed? Are you using a CRM like HoneyBook? Are you using PDFs? Are you doing DocuSign, email, carrier pigeon? However you're doing it, comment and let me know because I want to actually know what's happening out there. How are we really running our businesses in 2026?